James Gunn, who was just named co-CEO of DC Studios, says they have started making plans for the next 10 years of the DC Universe. The original plans for a DC cinematic universe to compete with Marvel's began with 2013's Man of Steel and continued with 2016's Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, which got a lot of bad reviews. Starting us off, DC Studios has begun mapping its new 10-year plan, confirms James Gunn. Warner Bros. Discovery recently tried to get the troubled franchise back on track by putting Gunn and producer Peter Safran in charge of the newly renamed DC Studios. Critical flops, dramas behind the scenes, and new faces have marked the troubled franchise. Even though Gunn and Safran's new jobs didn't start until the beginning of the month, the director of the Suicide Squad says the two have already hit the ground running. Gunn has talked about the co-CEO's plans to make DC as great as it can be and should be in a Warner Bros. Discovery virtual town hall, which The Hollywood Reporter reported on. It turns out that these plans are already being carried out. Gunn said, "I'm doing this job because I know Peter and I can make DC as great as it can and should be. We've spent the last few days with some of the best thinkers and writers in the business. We're starting to make a plan for the next 8 to 10 years for what these characters will look like in theater, on TV, in animation, and everywhere else." When will Gunn and Safran reveal their DCU plan? Gunn and Safran's hiring was exciting for DC fans who wanted to see the popular comic book franchise get past its rough start and reach its full potential. Even though movies like Wonder Woman 2017 and Aquaman 2018 connected with audiences, DC has often struggled to match the success of the rival Marvel Cinematic Universe. The franchise's problems have only worsened because of the bad news about the Justice League reshoots, the claims that the studio messed with 2016 Suicide Squad, and the Flash star Ezra Miller's strange behavior. Everyone is watching the new DC Studios to see what its new creative heads will do with the series. Taking a page from Kevin Feige, the head of the MCU, Gunn and Safran is on track to give the renamed DCU a strong foundation that will guide the studio's work for the next 10 years. Most fans will want to know when these plans will finally be made known to the public. Fans might expect the big reveal from the co-CEOs to happen at a big event like next year's San Diego Comic-Con, which is how Marvel Studios usually does things. The two could also try to bring back the popular DC Fandom event, which was stopped earlier this year. That could allow them to show off their plans for DCU before SDCC, which usually happens in late July. Where will the DCU's new story begin? At the moment, the DCU still has several movies coming out that were in different stages of production before the recent shakeup and rebranding of the studio. Since Shazam! Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Blue Beetle, Aquaman, and The Lost Kingdom are all set to come out in 2023, likely Gunn and Safran's plans for the franchise will start to affect it in 2024 or later. Likely they don't want to start only some of the whole universe, and the new DCU story will continue going in the same direction as the old one. Fans will be interested to see what the future holds for DC Studios no matter what happens. Next, Dave Bautista can play Bane now that James Gunn is in charge of DCU. Dave Bautista tweeted a picture of himself in front of a Warner Bros. Logo on April 20, 2021. He mysteriously said that he wasn't joking, but at least he tried. He went to the head of DC and demanded Bane's role, which they weren't casting for at the time. In November 2022, James Gunn will be co-head of DC Studios. Gunn has been in charge of all 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. The third one will come out in 2023, and Dave Bautista will play Drax. In 2012's The Dark Knight, Tom Hardy played Bane in a pretty realistic way. Christopher Nolan was going for a more realistic take on Batman, but Gunn and the DCU are no longer limited in that way in a world full of aliens, gods, and people with superpowers. If Bane showed up in future Batman movies directed by Gunn, it would probably be more true to the comics and a lot crazier, which is exactly what Bautista and the fans want. Fans have often thought of Bautista as the bad guy in Batman movies even before he asked WB executives to change their minds. Even without CGI, his 6'4" height and ripped body make him look like a bad guy who has been taking steroids. Now the only thing standing in the way of Bautista's dream role is the agreement of his friend, Gunn. Gunn's last movie for DC, The Suicide Squad, was a big hit, and he was just named head of the studio. Gunn got Idris Elba, Michael Rooker, Taika Waititi, and a few lower-level stars to appear in and star in the 2021 film. Since he already had good relationships with a few of them, we'll likely see more former MCU actors in DC movies, especially now that he has a more important job. One question in this fan cast fantasy is which Batman Bautista would fight. Matt Reeves' The Batman came out in March 2022 to very high ratings, but Batman, played by Robert Pattinson, is not part of the shared DCU universe and is likely to stay that way in upcoming sequels. Reeves' version of the Batman was more like Nolan's, quite a bit more grounded and real. If a comic-accurate Bane showed up in Gunn's DC, it would probably be against Ben Affleck's Batman, who is said to have signed on for more superhero work after previously seeming done with the role. Affleck's version version of Batman fought Superman head-to-head before going to war with aliens, so a more fantastic villain would work better for that version. WBD CEO gives exciting update on James Gunn's DCU plan. Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav talks about where the DC Universe is going with James Gunn and Peter Safran's upcoming plan for the brand. Warner Brothers Discovery had a very exciting year in 2022, especially regarding the DC brand. Several Arrowverse shows were cancelled when the CW got new owners, and the studio cancelled the Batgirl movie, which had already finished filming in late March. But the company's new version won't give up on the DCU soon. Gunn and Safran are in charge of DC Studios, which they just set up. Zaslav talked about the future of the DCU and Safran and Gunn's new plans for the brand in a recent interview at RBC, according to THR. Zaslav said they both want to use DC's full potential in a way that hasn't been done before. He is excited to see this happen in the coming years. What could Gunn and Safran's DCU master plan look like? Zaslav, Gunn, and Safran have all talked positively about a 10-year plan for the DCU, but it still needs to be clarified what they're going to do with the franchise. Based on the few cryptic details that have come out recently, the focus is not just on using more of the big players, but also on using some of the less well-known DC characters. In the last few weeks, Gunn has made people wonder if Mr. Terrific and Lobo could be brought to life on the big screen. Many people think that Gunn and Safran are starting over with the DCU, but they aren't. Instead, they refocus on what has worked and made the most of it. With his work on Peacemaker, Amanda Waller's spin-off show, and more mystery projects, Gunn is already a part of this connected universe, so it makes more sense to keep going with the DCU instead of starting over. Using HBO Max is also a key part of DC Studios' plans for the future. The head of originals, Sarah Audrey, has recently talked about how excited she is to work with Safran and Gunn. Since Gunn and Safran's new job started on November 1, Warner Brothers Discovery probably will start announcing new DCU movies and TV shows for a while. But this is a step in the right direction for Warner Brothers Discovery when it comes to using the DC brand to its fullest. Having not one but two leaders in charge of DC TV, film, and animation will help bring a sense of unity in a way that hasn't existed in recent years. With longtime DCU actors, including Henry Cavill and Jason Momoa, having already gushed about Gunn and Safran's DC Studios plans, time will tell what they have in store for DCU fans. Well, that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Till next time, cheers!